So why do you support Donald Trump?
Yeah, like I was saying, I agree with his abortion stance. I agree with his stance on immigration. Um,
Okay. What about
and
immigration?
yeah, I think we do need to tighten the border. I've heard you. I've heard your stance on it. You believe that we should give a pathway to citizenship. I don't think it's that easy. I don't think it should be that easy. Given that, in my opinion, this is the greatest country in the world, I think there should be an extensive background check. Just as I went through, just as multiple other people that have gotten those citizenships have gone through. I don't think you should necessarily skip the line and then be able to get a pathway after that. We've broken the rules, so I think you should be able to restart and then go through that way. I think it causes a plethora of complications that really aren't needed. We already deal with so much as a country, and I think that's just something that we can, mitigate on.
Okay, so for people who are coming to the country, uh, what would be wrong or what would be a detriment to our society by providing a pathway to citizenship for those that have not committed violent crimes and bad crimes that are
Well,
in the
that's the
country
thing. You
undocumented?
see, you keep bringing that up. I mean, even that, like being able to sift through who hasn't committed a violent crime or not. They've. I mean, a crime is crime. Right? I think when you're looking at it in that lens of giving someone a citizenship, I think that's how you should view it. They've already broken a law, so they should just go through it the correct manner. I don't think they should be punished for what they've done already. I think even giving them that sort of leisure room to go back and get that citizenship, even after they've broken the law, is more than enough.
I don't
I
think they
get
should have
you.
to leave the country. Now, if you say breaking the law, what do you think is a bigger issue? Committing a misdemeanor or
But
committing a
that's not
felony?
right. Well, you see, I mean, when we're thinking about immigration, I don't think that's not necessary to really compare and contrast the two. I don't think that's a necessary argument to have.
What's typically worse, a felony or a misdemeanor?
Obviously, a felony is, but
Okay.
like I'm saying,
So then, like,
I don't think
here'd
it's a
be my
necessary
question.
argument.
Here'd be my question. Why would someone have to leave the country under the context of them having come to the country undocumented, but you would still support someone like Donald Trump,
Well,
who is
because
a convicted criminal?
you see, well, first off, it's setting a precedent, right? You're setting the law down, and you're making the rule very clear. Now, if you bend the law, or maybe a certain group of people that have already broken the law, that just it's kind of backwards on the whole law that's already set in itself. This is something that I think the country should hone in on and make it a very black and white ruling. And whoever's broken the law should temporarily maybe remove themselves from the country whilst they're going through the process, or if they can get it done whilst they're in the country. I mean, so be it. But I don't see that happening. I don't see why we should use our resources to even get them to get to the offices or get them the resources to be able to get that citizenship. That's just unfair. That's us, helping them get that citizenship after they've already broken the law, if that makes sense. Where we have other people who are going through it legally to get their citizenship.
Yeah, and I would like to incentivize more people to go through the legal process by making the process quicker. But
Well,
that
not
doesn't mean that
necessarily.
I
You're not
believe that
incentivizing
undocumented
them.
immigrants should have to leave the country.
You're not incentivizing them. You're saying, yeah, you've broken the rules, so stay here. Let me accommodate you, and we'll
Yeah, that's
help
fine.
you get your.
The law was not
That's
justified.
not fine. Yeah, that's not fine. I mean,
Well,
I really do
you
think the
were okay
left.
with Donald Trump doing that with January 6 violent rioters who beat police officers.
Yeah, but you were also okay with that when the BLM riots were going on in
No, I
whatever
don't think
state
any
that.
person who engaged in any riot specifically should be like pardoned or anything, right? And what you're talking about is mostly peaceful protests, right? The idea that it's categorized as
I was
riots
speaking
is
about
insane.
the incident. I forget what state it was in, but the gas station incident.
Well, if there was any violence, I would disagree with any violence, right? In that specifically,
Okay,
in that
good. So
context,
then we
right?
agree.
There were Democrats not pardoning them. They were not pardoning people who have committed violence. So explain to me how it's something that you overlook in terms of Donald Trump, in terms of him pardoning violent rioters who
Why
beat
are you
police
bringing up
officers. Can I
Donald?
please
We're
finish?
speaking on the context of
Am
immigrants.
I
Why are
able
we
to
talking about
finish?
Donald Trump?
I
Yeah,
don't know
but
what
you're
you're
bringing up
saying
Donald Trump.
currently
Yeah, because you're not listening. Why are you bringing up
because you
Donald
are
Trump
cutting
if
me
we're
off in
talking
the
about
middle of my
immigrants?
sentence.
Right, because you're bringing up something that's not in relevance to our conversation. You're bringing up Donald
It
Trump,
was in
which has
total
nothing to do with.
relevance.
Yeah, well, no, it's to curate your argument, which I think is already in bad faith when you're bringing up Donald Trump and we're speaking in regards to immigrants. I don't think
I'm sorry,
that's
we're
we're not.
talking about why you support Trump, and you're telling me that Trump isn't relevant to that conversation? Explain to me
We're
how.
speaking
Explain
about
to me how.
immigration.
Yeah,
Are
and
you okay
what
in
did
the
you
head?
say about immigration? You said
That we
specifically
should
what?
that we should they should come into the country through the legal process that we have currently.
So again, I'm saying the same type of standards that you apply onto undocumented immigrants should be the same type of standards that you apply to the president of the United States, and you don't do so. You were specifically saying, "Oh, how could we just be like, okay, you're saying we were being accommodating to undocumented immigrants who have broke the law, but
Yeah.
Donald Trump's being accommodating to people who are police officers on January 6th who are literally engaging in insurrection at the Capitol."
Okay. I mean, why you don't really have to correlate those two sort of things. I mean, because I could use multiple examples of where the Democratic Party has maybe have done the same thing. We would really get nowhere with that sort of argumentation. And the left really, it's just always like if I were to point to something, you just be like, okay, well, I don't agree with that certain sense. I just think the left and their ideologies, it's it's evil. I really do think it is. I think it's, and if you really get to the bottom root of it, when you speak about this whole transgender move or the whole like LGBTQ movement, the
What type of pivot was that?
abortion.
What type of pivot was this? We were
It's not a
just
pivot.
talking
It's
about
just
crimes and how you guys overlook crimes when it relates to Donald Trump and you accommodate crimes in terms of Trump. You're okay with Donald Trump doing that, but for some reason it's such an issue specifically to
I never
accommodate
said that.
undocumented immigrants who have not committed a violent crime or bad crime. I have no issue with accommodating undocumented immigrants who have not committed a violent crime or bad crime. I think the legal process should go quicker for undocumented immigrants. It should go quicker for people going through
How
the
should
legal
it go? What do you
process.
mean it should go quicker, bro? I mean that's where I'm
The
having
legal
an issue.
process should not take so long. There are artificial barriers put in place by Republicans and by people on the right to limit people from being able to come into the country.
Okay, and what are those barriers?
Yeah, for example, like there are plenty of different things like civics tests that people have to take. There are time periods that people have to go through. They have to pay lots of money. The
No,
fact that
no.
it takes
What
five
do
to
you mean
7 years
time
on
periods?
average and it costs upwards of $10,000, it is the case that it's way too much.
What do you mean time periods? What do you mean by that? What
It,
time period? I haven't heard of that.
the average time period for people to get into the country is
No, no.
five to
You
seven
said
years.
that the Republican Party has put in these blockades, including time periods.
Yes. Who
Yeah, what mandate have they put in place? Like, what time period does someone applying for citizenship have to follow? I
I
don't.
just
I've
told you
never heard of
multiple
that.
times. The average.
That's an average. That's not like the. That's not like an actual law. That's not like, oh, you have to wait 2-3 years before you get your citizenship. It's not an
So
intentional.
you want me to mention every single part of the process that makes it
No, you
take
said
five to
no,
seven
no.
years on
You
average?
said, okay, hold on. You said the Republican Party has created these like quote unquote
Yes,
laws
and
of
I gave you
blockade. How?
examples.
Okay, no, you haven't. You just
I
said
did.
on average. You said on average it takes. Oh
That was
yeah,
what
I
I said
mean,
after I gave you examples. Did you listen to me at all?
what example? What example are you giving? Sorry.
So, for example, a civics test, that is a specific example for something that Republicans have advocated for, that people have to go through in order to be able to be in the country. I think the process that
Sure, I
people should
think
have to go through are specifically literally just health screenings, right, in order to provide people vaccines, things that they need, and also a background check. That's it. And the current process takes so long because we do not have
so
enough
you don't think they
immigration
have to know
judges.
anything about the country that they're
It,
entering.
can I keep going, or are you going to keep cutting me off halfway through my sentences?
You could calm down, but you can also continue as well.
I'm completely calm.
I don't think so, but go on.
How am I not calm? I'm literally just telling you to
No,
stop
that's all
interrupting
right.
me.
Yeah, no, that's all right. You can just go on.
Okay. So again, what was the claim that I was just making? Can you remind me?
You were speaking about how the Republican Party has advocated for civics testing. You don't think that's necessary for some odd reason?
Why is it necessary?
Well, I think whoever's applying to come into a country should know everything about the country before they
Okay, well
come
then
in.
I'll ask you a few questions. Can you tell me how many branches of government are there?
There are three branches
What
of
are they?
government: legislative, judicial, and executive.
What are the two main aspects of the legislative branch?
The two main aspects was it's Congress and is to pass laws and to
What two main aspects? Congress. What are the two main aspects of Congress?
is that even on the civics test? The Congress.
Yes.
I mean, I'm blanking on it at the moment. Can't remember.
You should have to know everything before you're allowed into the country.
No. I mean, if you're to take a test, usually as long as you understand the general basis of the test, that's pretty much like that's the main takeaway from it. If that makes
How many
sense.
people are in the Senate?
12. Oh, sorry,
No.
50. Sorry, sorry. Is it 50? 52, 50, somewhere around
Nope.
that ball.
Nope.
Well, I don't remember.
Okay. How many people are in the House of Representatives?
12.
Nope. So 100 and 435. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
So yeah. So I mean, I can keep going. I can keep asking you questions. What are the five freedoms
Right.
granted to you through the context of the First Amendment?
5 freedoms granted to you
I'll
through the
actually I'll ask
context.
you for two of the five. Sorry, I feel like five is too much.
Freedom of speech,
Okay, that's one.
of freedom of press, or something. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. I'll give you those. Any other one you want to provide? Oh, one more.
I mean, yes for 2, but yeah, yes for 2. I gave the 2. I mean, but like I said, my point, going back to my point, as long as you understand the general basis of it, I think that's what matters. Like, I took this test, about
The
10,
general
15
basis of it.
years
I mean, I
ago.
asked you a few things. You didn't know how many people were in the House of Reps. You didn't know how many people were in the House
Yeah,
of,
because I've forgotten.
or
I've
in the
forgotten that.
Senate. You didn't know the Senate and the House of Reps were literally the two main aspects of Congress. So I mean, like,
Right. Like,
I don't think this is necessary for you to be able to legally immigrate to the country. I have no issue with
no, I
that.
mean,
Do you see
like
my
I said,
point?
at the
Do you see
time
my
when
point that like
no,
asking
I
those
don't
questions are
understand.
super irrelevant?
No, I don't. Let me explain. Let me explain. Can I just explain? So, um, when I took this test 10, 15 years ago, I mean, I think it was good to know because when I went to university here, it did help me as well. I mean, like, I think it is. I think it is. It's just basic knowledge that you should know about, the country and your surroundings that you're in. I think
You
that's
don't
just a
need to know
practical
that.
thing to
The
do.
thing is,
I don't
it
think
could. So you're saying it could be
you
helpful,
don't need to
sure.
know that. Like, so you're
It,
saying some.
but you don't need to know it.
Why would you not need to know that? Why would you not need to know how your country
You
is
didn't need to
is
know it. You
fundamentally
don't know
like
it. You don't know it. It's
operating?
fine,
I
right?
did. I did have
Most
to know.
Americans
No,
couldn't
I
pass a
did. I
civics
did know it.
test.
I did know it. I had
Listen,
passed the
listen,
test.
listen. Most Americans would not pass the civics test.
Right. Well, because I mean, but there's no. Hold on. I mean, they're meant to learn it throughout their education through K through 12. That's the time period that they're supposed to learn it in.
Well, they clearly didn't. So
What do you mean they clearly didn't? You're just making up assumptions. I mean, look, you see, I think that's just a laughable take, to be honest. I think you should know the country and how it operates. Um, and yeah, maybe it's not necessary to like remember it for like 20 years down the line, but as long as at some point you understand the general basis of it, I think that should be fine. Now, if you're saying that the civics test should be like modified in some certain way just to get those like basic points down for any citizens that's coming, that's completely fine. Modify the test a little bit. Maybe the extraneous mic, or what's the word I'm looking for, micro questions aren't really necessary, but the basics, yeah, of course you should know. Of course you should know those things. Now, of course, like I don't remember content that I studied 10, 15 years ago, but at the time, clearly I did, and I passed it. Just like I'm sure whatever degree that you studied, you wouldn't remember every single thing about what you studied, in sixth grade or in college or whatever the case may be.
okay. So then the point is that you don't need it for your daily life. It's not necessary information.
Right.
Now,
I never
could you
said you
say
need
that
it
it
for your
could be? Could
daily
I please
life.
finish? Can I please finish? So you could say
I
that it
mean,
could
if you
be.
keep missing, Okay,
I'm
go
gonna
on.
just mute you. You could say that it could be helpful information that people might be it might be useful for them, right? In plenty of context, but that doesn't mean that they need to have it in order to be able to legally enter the country. If we're talking about people legally entering the country, it should not be a forced element of the process. I also think that there should be more investments for immigration judges and for the court process to allow for the process to go significantly quicker, because the current process, again, takes too
Okay,
long because of those different types of things that Republicans have put in office, specifically to reduce
yeah.
the amount of people that are a part of the process to make it take even longer.
Okay, can I so I don't think it's needed to just come into the country. You don't need to know that information to get a visa. It's needed to get a citizenship, but not needed to come into the country. So
It's
I'd like to
not
correct
needed
you
to
on
be a
that point.
citizen. Sorry, let me clarify. It's not needed to be a citizen.
Right, yeah. Good. That's what I meant. So you said it's needed to come into the country, which is that's not true.
I again have stated multiple times it's not needed to become a citizen. Do you agree with me? It's not needed to be a citizen to become a citizen.
Wait, sorry, say that again.
Do you agree with me?
Yeah,
It's not
that's I
needed to
corrected
become a
you on. You
citizen.
said I do. I know. I agree that there are certain contents that are needed. Yeah, to become a citizen. Yes, 100%. That's my point.
So again, what is needed? What certain things are needed?
Just the basics, the basic information about the how the country is found, how it operates
Such
in
as?
the legal system. All that. Well, I mean, we've already. I mean, I don't want to go through what the civics test should keep in and should take out. I'm not in a position to do that. But like I said in the beginning, just so we can move on to another point, if it should be modified, then it should be modified. If that's your point, if you think there are contents in it that aren't really necessary, then make a new edition. That's why new editions of
There
exams
doesn't need
happen
to
all
be
the
a
time. Like
civics
this
test in general. Like there's no need for it in general. I don't want a
so
civics
you're
test.
saying someone should just okay? I just think that's absurd.
It's
I've
not.
never actually heard anyone say this point. So okay. I mean, so you're saying someone should walk into a house that you should say. So would you
It's
buy
not.
a house that you've never seen before in your life? You know absolutely nothing about the house. You don't know how many rooms.
No.
I'm using an example. I'm using an example. You're looking to buy a house. The house that you're prospecting to buy or live in, you don't know anything about the house. You don't know how many rooms are in the house. You don't know. You don't know the context of the contents of the house, the metrics of the house. I think that's absurd that you think someone should just be able to walk into a place and know nothing about where they're going to be staying.
Should it be
I think
legal
that's
for
mad.
someone to buy a house if they don't know what the house looks like or if they don't know anything about the house? Should that be
Sure,
legal?
it should be legal, but that's not my point. I think you missed my
Okay, we're
point. My
talking about the
point is you
legal
should know
process
the
of someone
content,
coming into the country. Someone does not need to know
right?
anything about how our government operates or anything like that in order to become a citizen, right? There
But
are
that's
plenty
not
of
what's
citizens
only
that
on the
can I
civics
please
test.
finish? Can I please finish? Right? I'm going to start muting you every single time. Like it's ridiculous at this point, right? Cuz I literally forget what I have to say. You go ahead and go say what you were going to say cuz I just forgot.
Well, because I think you're just trying rubbish at this point. I think you should know there are basic or general knowledge questions. I should say it like that. There should be general knowledge questions about our government and whatever the case may be that a citizen should know. Now, I agree that they shouldn't know the nitty gritty of the content that they're studying, but they should have. You should be able to pass a general knowledge set. Every single, I mean, that's like a basic standardized testing ideology that you should know the general information of the content or whatever it is that you're going after. To say that we should completely remove that, I think that's absurd. I think that's a mad take. Now, again, if your point may be in the future, I think it should be the test should be modified, which I would 100% agree with. Modify it, maybe make it a lot more condensed, and then move on from there. To say that it should be completely extradited is completely that's absurd. I think that's. I'm sure take we agree on that. Like I think that's a fair point. I agree that it should be condensed. There are contents that shouldn't that I believe aren't necessary, but as long as the main takeaway um is being digested from whoever's studying the content, is all that matters.
Many citizens, most citizens, do not know this information. So I actually would
Oh
say that
my
it's not
goodness.
useful for there to be any type of process that someone has to go through in order to become a citizen, right? In terms of civics tests. Again, I've said this,
So
and
okay,
I'll
so are you
keep.
saying
Wow,
sorry, sorry to cut you off.
I do have to mute you every single time I speak.
I have to because you go on these rants and I forget. I just want to
I
ask
go
you
on
real
these
quick.
rants. You just
So do you
spoke for
think
like
you
three
should
times longer than I did.
because you're going in circles because okay, so do you
No, I'm
think the
not.
history department do you think the history department for people in middle school or high school should be taken away? Do you think the citizens that are born in this country, do you think that they shouldn't have to learn about history of of their country? Is that basically what you're advocating for?
I'm saying that this can be helpful or useful, but it should not be necessary in order for someone to become a citizen.
So you think it should be an elective, not a
I think it's
like
okay in
not
the context of the K through 12 public system because it's an elective to go through the system. You can go homeschool.
sorry, what?
Yeah, you can choose to go homeschool, so it's elective.
Yeah, but whatever the case may be, let's keep homeschooling out of the picture here. I'm saying people that go through the
What? You can't
public.
just keep that out of the picture. I'm just indicating that it's elective based upon that means. Therefore, it is the case that you could say to some degree that like it meets that standard. So yeah, I'm okay with it being in the context of school systems.
So you're okay with citizens having to learn that information.
Yeah, that being an option, absolutely.
So why should people applying to get that citizenship not have to know that information?
Because it's not necessary to become a citizen, but it is something important that someone could learn, right, within the context of an education system.
I'm so confused. So you think citizens should have to learn the information, but someone that is applying to
I
become
said is
that
I have an
said
option.
citizen.
I said I have an option.
So you think citizens should have an option whether or not they should take a civics test or know information about.
So you understand that like the idea of civics is going to be in place in the context of our history courses already. So it's an
That's
element of
my
history
point.
courses. What's your point though?
That is my point. My point is it's an element in history classes. So you're saying that a civics test is not necessary for someone that's applying for citizenship to take. So do you think
Yes.
and
Wait. So then, are you saying that they'll have to take an English course? Are you saying that they're going to have to take specifically all the different courses K through 12?
well yeah, they're all, I'm pretty sure you do have to you mean what do you mean by that?
No, I don't think you should have to do any of those things. You should not have to take any of those courses. Do you think they should have to take mathematics exams, like we do in the
No.
context of K through 12?
But
So
that's not
why
my
are you
point.
conflating? Why are you
Oh my
conflating?
days.
Let me please finish. Why are you conflating specifically what people learn through K through 12 to be what people have to learn coming through the country,
If
through
you
the legal
think that's what my
process?
point is, then you've completely missed my point. If you think that's what my
Then
point, do you
clarify.
seriously think that's my point? My point is, you said I was critiquing your point. My point was you said that citizens that are in this country don't really know that information. That's just maybe up to, you know, whoever is teaching them or just the person who's interpreting that information, not studying the material that well. You're saying that my point basically is that if a citizen is mandated to learn that type of information, specifically just history, which I think you should know, that's why it's in our or in American citizens curriculum. Why shouldn't an immigrant have to also know that basic information that is taught?
Well, I think that's a ridiculous way of specifically looking at education because people don't have to learn
I'm not
mathematics to that
specifically
degree.
looking
People
at
don't have to learn
education.
biology to that degree. People don't have to learn any of
It's
the other elements, right? Specifically of the context of our K through 12 public education system, right? In order to be able to get into the country through the context of citizenship. So obviously, I'm going to view it differently than what we specifically have with citizenship, as we wouldn't have them take entirety sets of courses, the entirety of sets of courses.
So okay, so let me ask you this. Then maybe you just I mean made me confuse my point, but I think my point was very clear. But so what do you think as someone that's applying for a U.S. citizenship? What do you think they should do? Just keep it concise for me if you can.
Yeah, I've already said this. I think it should specifically
I know,
be
but
health screenings to help people get access to vaccines if they don't have
so
access to them already, and then also
mhm.
specifically, what's it called, um, uh, a background check, and that's all I believe that there needs
So
to be.
just make sure that they're healthy and they haven't committed any crimes. Practically, that's it. And so they shouldn't know anything about the country at all. You don't think that should be like a prerequisite?
What's up?
You don't think it has to be a prerequisite to know anything about the country or go through any type of testing in that regard?
Nope.
Okay, well, I think that's a mad take, but I guess we'll
How?
agree to disagree on
How
that.
is it a bad take?
I said it's a mad take, but because I think that's something that citizens, as citizens, that's something that, as a natural born citizen, that's something that's an education that you receive. So I think someone that's employed for citizenship, that's also, that's something that you should also
He's
receive
actually
as
just going
well.
to make the same point. What was my response to that point?
Right, but you're speaking about K-12 and multiple different classes in a general pool. I'm just trying to hone in specifically on this point
So
regarding the
so
civics
if you're
test and the history
saying
courses.
K through 12 is the reason why they need to learn civics because civics is within K through 12, then why don't you say that about all the other classes K through 12? Why is it just civics?
Mate, because I'm not taught, because that's not what you have to. You don't have to go through a mathematics test for a citizenship.
Exactly.
So that
Exactly.
point was
Exactly
invalid.
my
No, what
point.
do you mean examine? What do you mean exactly? That's not your point, mate.
That's my point.
So, what do you mean exactly? So then that point makes no sense. That's not what I'm
Exactly.
referring
We
to,
don't use math tests, right? So it is the case that we
right?
shouldn't use a civics test.
No, what? That's not my point. that's not.
That's actually
That's
exactly what
not
your
my
point was.
point.
Your point was K through 12 has this, therefore we should also have it in the context of our immigration processes. And I'm saying that's a ridiculous
Right?
point because we do not apply it to other classes.
No, no, no. But my point is, because the reason why we should learn about civics is because it is what the country is founded on. It is that's how we operate. That's how our legal system works. Getting a basic understanding of that is what is needed. It is already inferred that you've maybe learned maybe mathematics or whatever the case may be in other countries, and that I don't think is really necessary to realm about the country that you're in. If someone were to get into legal trouble, they can easily argue, "Oh, well, I had no clue about this. I'm just a citizen holder from a different country." Does that make sense? Like, they can just argue, "Oh, I've just never learned this. Blah blah blah." Like, I have no understanding of this going on. So how would you uphold, I guess, legal cases if that were to occur?
Repeat your question. Sorry, I didn't understand.
Let's say someone were to get, so if a civics, or let's say a citizenship is based on the two criteria that you named, a background check and making sure the person's healthy, and then they were to in the future get into a legal kerfuffle, and they turn around and they say, "Hey, like, I never really learned about this. I didn't know that I had to buy these certain laws, or whatever the case may be, because I never learned about it." How do you think a court should approach it then?
How do I think a
Because
court should?
the reason why we have a civics test, I believe, is
Them not understand.
to make
Are you
sure,
saying because they don't understand what the law is, it is the case that they shouldn't
right,
specifically be held accountable for the law? Okay, so then you can have
right,
prescriptions for people to have access to the connotation of the law, but there shouldn't be a specific test that they'd have to engage in, and if they don't specifically pass, that they should then be not allowed in the context of the citizenship. Because
well, if they don't
every
pass, that
citizen
means they don't understand the
not every
law.
citizen knows every single law as well. There are plenty of
Oh
laws
my
specifically that
days.
exist in terms of citizens that they don't understand as well. And if they were to
Right,
claim that they didn't know specifically, it still wouldn't be the case that we wouldn't hold them accountable, right?
right. I mean, I think you're just missing my point. I don't think. I mean, whatever. I guess we'll
Then
just
you can
move on to it.
clarify. You said not to assume things, so just go ahead and clarify.
No, I think it was pretty clear. Like, I mean, I think the premise of the civics test is just to understand the lay of the land and the rule of the law. Yeah, and I think that if you think we should completely extradite that, and someone were to get into legal trouble in the future, and they were to get in trouble with the law, they can easily turn around and say they have no knowledge about that said law.
Okay, so how is that a response to anything I just said? Because I literally just addressed that.
Right, because that's the I think that's the reason for the civics test, and you're saying,
No,
I
it's
didn't
not.
really understand. What do you mean by that? No,
It's
it's
not.
not.
It's not a reason for a civics test.
It's, it's not a reason. You don't think that's a reason
No,
for the
no.
civics test?
It'd be a reason to provide educational resources on how the law operates, but not specifically to test
Right,
people to say that
getting
if people do
education
not
on.
pass this test, right, that they specifically will not be allowed into the country. You can provide resources for people, given that they're coming to the country, provided by the
Mhm,
state. Be like, oh,
mhm.
here's extra information if you want to look through it.
And who's actually going to look through that? To be serious here.
Wait, I'm
Who's
sorry.
actually going to look?
So you saying that people decided not to look through it? Well, then that's going to be based upon their own choices, right? That's
So
their
if you
determination.
mail me, I get citizenship.
You're cutting out.
I mailed you a 500-page manual on how you're going to sit through that and read that on your own. You're
Well,
frozen on my screen.
well, I think that when you're going into certain areas, you have to look at like the different types of laws that could prohibit you from engaging in particular actions, and that would be important to look at. And that ignorance of a law doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be held accountable for that law. There are plenty of people that don't know that certain things are illegal in the United States yet are held accountable.
Right. Well, because they're citizens, so it's already inferred that they know.
No,
Oh,
it's
that's
not.
sweet. Was that your girlfriend just doing something? What do you mean it's not inferred?
It's not inferred that they know.
It is as a citizen, of course, it is inferred that you know. That's. What do you mean by that?
Say that again.
What do you mean as a citizen? It's not inferred that we are. It's not inferred that we should abide by the law if we have knowledge of the law.
Not everyone in the
Why'd you
United
just
States
say
knows
that?
this. There are people that can claim that who are U.S. citizens. Would you like
Right,
to
but if they
respond?
still break the
I
law,
would love for you to
right?
respond
But if
to.
they
I would love for you to respond to that specific point.
no, well, that point that you just made earlier, that rant that you just went on, my service cut out there, so I actually didn't hear it. It was like sped up, so I couldn't actually hear what you were saying. To that point, if you like to repeat it, or if you just want to move on, I'm not making that up. You actually just sped up there, so I didn't hear a single thing that you made up to that follow-up point. But if you'd like to move on, that's fine. But if you want to repeat it as well, that's also fine.
Do you think that the civics test goes through everything, every single thing in the context of our law?
No, but I think it
Okay.
does cover a general basis of it.
Okay. So if someone were not to know a specific law, would them claiming
Yeah.
ignorance about that law mean that they shouldn't be held accountable?
Regarding a specific law, no, I don't think so. But like I said, I
Okay.
think
So then why are you applying this standard to me, but you're not willing to apply it to yourself when the same conditions are true?
well, because you're speaking about a specific law. I'm speaking in general, right? Like I'm just speaking
What?
on a general sense.
What? If the civics test doesn't have that in it anyway, how is it a critique to my perspective?
Okay, well then maybe that's a fault in my argument. I think the point that I made was pretty clear. Maybe my vocab or verbalizing it in a way that someone else maybe could to help you understand. So I guess we'll just have to move on. I don't know how else to explain my point to you, really, but I think it's pretty clear. You're saying that we should expedite the civics test, which I think covers some contents of how legal
Tell me, what's
mechanisms work in this
necessary within
country.
the civics test? Give me a specific that's necessary in the civics test.
Like knowing how many states there are, knowing like who your president is, like knowing, you know.
I don't think any of those are necessary to become a citizen. I mean, I've had
So what
people
do you
on my
think was
live stream
this?
not be able to answer those questions. I'm not trolling. There was someone on my live
Well, I mean, but that
recently that
doesn't mean
said there were
it hasn't
52
been taught.
states.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it hasn't been taught. Like maybe that's just that. That's just there. That's just there. I mean, I think you should know. Basically, I think you should definitely know like who the first president of the country is. I don't think maybe you should have to know. I think you should
I
know
don't think that's
important
relevant at all. I don't care.
events.
I don't care if they know or don't know George Washington's name. Like that's ridiculous.